From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Frontier, Norwegian, Allegiant, three new airlines announcing the last few months that they will be flying in and out of TF Green. Is Rhode Island's major airport seeing a turnaround after years of weak passenger numbers? Our guest on the first half of Newsmakers, President and CEO of the Rhode Island Airport Corporation, Iftikhar Ahmad. Then, everything you need to know about the budget and the latest on the controversy surrounding free tuition given to a top State House staffer, with a reporters' roundtable on the second half of Newsmakers. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the program, as always, from WPRI.com, reporter Ted Nesi. Iftikhar Ahmad, President and CEO of the Rhode Island Airport Corporation. Welcome to the program. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
And welcome to Rhode Island. You came here in October, right?
Thank you.
Okay. So look, I said in the opening of the show, we're seeing more airlines come in. I mentioned Frontier, Norwegian, Allegiant. Yesterday, you announced one jet, flights to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Obviously, all very good news. But looking at your website, the passenger numbers are down from last year.
Yes.
If you take a step back, what's the overall trend for TF Green?
Right now it's flat, and so looking at the capacity coming in with seats, an airport without passengers is just a big building, and so what we're trying to do is bring passengers in. The RIAC, Rhode Island Airport Corporation, our mission is of that of economic development, about jobs and about quality of life for our state. And we do that by connecting it to the rest of the world. And how we do that is by getting airlines to offer service to all the cities from here and create jobs here, not just by bringing passengers here, but also hire folks here. Yesterday I got an email from one jet. They already want to start hiring. Frontier is hiring, and how I know that is because they are requesting our conference room where they could do these interviews for these folks. This is all great news. 22,500 jobs are associated with aviation in Rhode Island, and $2.6 billion economic impact. And our mission is to grow on both sides. Jobs and economic impact.
Do you have the capacity
Yes.
for all these airlines? And I mean like gate
Yes.
and infrastructure capacity.
Yes. You know, if you remember in 2005 when the big dig was going on in around Boston,
The passenger numbers were very high.
yeah, we were at 5 million plus passengers. And so we have seen the traffic before, we have seen the business before. Right now we're at 3.5 million passengers. So we need to get back up to 6 million passengers is where that's our goal.
You almost want to double it.
Yes, I would like to, we would like to see that happen. The governor would like to see that happen. The speaker would like to see that happen. Our Senate leaders, our wonderful, wonderful board of directors. And it is about, you know, having your kids that are going to these wonderful schools like Brown and URI, for them to have jobs here.
People will wonder, you know, it seemed like for a while there weren't many announcements of expansion if you're creating, and Tim says you've had a drumbeat, so I guess I'll let you gloat a little. I mean, what's changed that's allowed that? Is it something changing in the broader aviation market and we're just getting the benefit? Is it specific things TF Green's been doing that's drawn these people in?
We have a great team. At TF Green, we have a wonderful team. One thing about Rhode Island is that you can gather folks around a mission if we're really clear about it. And we have been, our board has been able to do that from the legislature side and also our governor. She's on point on it. And so as a team, we have approached the outside world with certain suggestions of how they could be more profitable here, and it's working.
But the other magnet is money, right? I mean,
Yes.
the state does provide taxpayer money to these airlines to get them here. Talk about those incentives, how much they are, and how they're used.
So we provide about $200,000 when there is a nonstop to where that we don't have today, and about $750 for a nonstop on international. So I'll tell you this, is that what we spend that on, what the airlines spend that on, is marketing Rhode Island, which is when you look at it, is a drop in a bucket versus, say, Bradley paid $14 million for Aer Lingus, $5 million at BWI for British Airways, $7 million in Pittsburgh for Delta's Charles de Gaulle.
So does Rhode Island not spend enough money on this? Should we have a bigger purse?
See, look. So if
you're going to say yes, of course.
No, I'm not. I think the process for us always takes a backseat to results. The results are here, and if the results weren't, we would push back and we will try to do more. But the results have been tremendous. 7 airlines in October, 11 right now, and growing. And so we are blessed. And we as a team have been successful.
Briefly, because I know it's a big project, the expansion project, which feels like it's been going on since I was a baby at this point. But when is that going to be finished, and what do you think the final price tag will be, admitting there's a lot of federal money involved?
Yes, so there's about $250 million that's being spent on runway to increase it about 1,400 feet or so. And so that is, the discussion may have been going on for a long time, which is quite common if you look at Fort Lauderdale and some of the other communities. But the actual work is recent. It will be completed by August 15. The pavement will be ready. December, the whole runway will be ready with its nav aids.
Of 2017?
Yes.
So you're almost there to be able to use it.
Almost there. And I think that it feels that way, that it may have been longer, but
And is the expansion project, is it, again, some of this I probably knew at some point and I've now forgotten, but is it for the use of the existing airlines that are in TF Green now, or is it to allow you to bring in new airlines, or both?
You're talking about the runway?
Yeah, the runway, I'm sorry, yeah.
Right. So the runway is, when you have, in summer, when the air is lighter, and if you have a bigger aircraft, it cannot take lift. It needs to run on the runway for so long before it takes lift. So you need a longer runway. It is very odd for an airport of our size and the only airport for a state to not have had the runway of 8,700 or 9,000 feet. That's odd. That's not normal in a lot of places. 99% of the airports would have that. Not one, but many. For Nashville, where I was the vice president in early 2000s, had 4 runways. And these runways are expensive. One runway, 8,500 feet, when you look at Atlanta, look at Fort Lauderdale, costs about $1.2 billion. But we were just expanding just a side of it so we can have bigger aircraft. And bigger aircrafts are good because you don't want to have littler aircraft doing a lot of because it creates noise issues. But if you have just bigger aircraft come so many times, it's better.
One last question just around all of that, which is it's to pay for that project, RIAC, the airport corporation, had to take on some debt, and the recent debt study that the Treasurer's Office did said the target should be about $100 in debt per clean passenger, and had you well above that at $137. Is that going to go up more, or are you going to bring that down?
We have talked to Mr. Magna. He's absolutely right. And how we're going to do that is it's a denominator issue. We're going to increase the passengers. Why it looks big is because we have lost the passengers in the denominator. So that has been halved. So we got to go back to 6, and it's going to be.
So with the project done, there's no sign that the numerator is going to be growing a lot more. The amount of debt is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, to stay on it, when you talk about bigger jets, and the capacity for more fuel is what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
So to go back to Ted's original question, does that mean we're going to see either with existing airlines or more airlines the possibility of expansion in terms of where you can go destination-wise?
And you've seen it. You've seen it. Norwegian is keeping the loads low, up to about 125 on 130 in some cases, on a 189-seater flight. And the reason is because the runway pavement is not available yet. So after August 15, they're going to have the longer runs, and so they will fill it more.
Pilots can breathe a little bit easier coming in and out of TF Green is what I'm hearing here. All right, so the budget that came out of the House Finance Committee,
yes.
And it was passed last night. So
yes.
I don't know if this, I'll be honest, I don't know if this survived the passing last night, but I'm sure you do. Mm-hmm. The House Finance Committee gave $2 million to the Airport Corporation. I think it was for, the Journal said it was for the for capital improvements. Yes. But you had asked for $5 million.
Yes.
What exactly is that funding earmarked for, and does that difference of $3 million hurt?
So we believe we would be able to have the full funding. And what it is for is investment in Rhode Island aviation infrastructure. Some folks believe you build it and they'll come. We believe if they're here, let's build it so they can do the business that they're supposed to do. So $5 million, you know, when you look at it on a $250 million, the international arrival facility was just not big enough to have 200 people dropped in there in one swoop. So custom border security folks told us, hey, you have to, if you want these flights to be approved by them, you have to increase.
Oh, so this was a necessity.
Yeah.
So you need to find
a requirement.
So you need to find that $3 million because the General Assembly did not give it to you.
And we will. We will. And I think that, so I'm going to check on it with our team, but we will be okay.
Back in April, the Attorney General and Representative McNamara, who represents part of Warwick, yes. Said they wanted air quality testing to continue around the airport. It was supposed to expire July 31st. Is that still set to expire, or will that continue? How was that resolved?
So we support air monitoring. I'm not an expert at it. We support our community. We have been testing for more than a decade, and McNamara, Chairman McNamara, and the rest of the folks, we are discussing it. We want to support it, and there are discussions going on. And so if there is a request to extend it, and we're trying to figure out how we could do that. So we're on the same page for it, and the discussions are going on. But so principally, we support the air monitoring. Would be great if it was Department of Health doing air monitoring because we're missioned with the Air Service Development. But we will do what the legislature would task us with.
The other day, actually, I have family who lives near the airport, so I was on Airport Road, yes. And it's striking that the area around the airport, the development has not necessarily been maybe all it could be. There's yes. the empty Hooters right across the street that was damaged yes. years ago. Yes. There's the area where the dome was. There's yes. a gas station when you turn onto the road that's all taken apart. Lots yes. of empty. Does that matter? You know, the fact yes. that when people get to TF
yes.
Green, drive out of the airport, absolutely. They see desolation.
Absolutely. That was so I started in October, and you know I'm getting my bearings, and I did do a few tours. I agree. You know, we're the first impression as folks are coming in. We're the last impression as you're getting into the airport as people are leaving. And it needs to present the best face of Rhode Island. So we're working with Mayor Vidasian and his planning folks to see how we could get that better. And so the discussions are ongoing. We're doing a master plan. We're embarking on one of how our facilities should look. We're discussing. I have a monthly meeting with Mayor Vidasian. We just hosted all of the city council of Warwick at the airport. We briefed them on things, and so we're having discussion. We're talking about it, but the result would be that in coming years that all of that could be made better, because that is our goal and that is their goal. It's just a issue of time right now.
Mr. Ahmad, we only have about 1 minute left before we have to cut you free. So very briefly, Ted and I have done a fair amount of reporting on commuter rail numbers, yes. Particularly coming out of South County, and the numbers out of TF Green for the commuter rail, disappointing. And there's been some talk that having Amtrak service yes. to the airport would be a big boon. Do you agree with that? And is there any hope that Amtrak could have a stop there?
So we had a discussion yesterday with Director Alviti and the assistant director, the new Shoshana. I mean, they're wonderful. And so we had a 1-hour meeting. We discussed some of these issues. Actually, I signed an email just as I was coming in. We are going to work on it. And some of it is that if you don't have the airline that is creating the passenger or the need to ride, we need to fix that. But there are 7 or 8 other things that we are going to work together on. I can't answer the Amtrak question yet because it's an issue of supply. What comes first? And I think we're focusing on demand right now. And I think supply
maybe get to 6 million. Amtrak might be a little bit more willing to come in.
If you create demand, supply comes with it.
Great. Before we go to the break, how do you like the job, and do you see yourself staying for a while?
I love Rhode Island. I live in East Greenwich. My family loves it. I'm just blessed to be here.
All right, Iftikhar Ahmad, President and CEO of the Rhode Island Airport Corporation. Thank you so much. We'll have you back soon, we hope. When we come back, we'll tell you what you need to know about the budget. Honestly, Ted will tell you what you need to know about the budget and the latest on a controversial perk given to a State House staffer. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. I'm joined by WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. 2 weeks ago, Ted and I filed a report on Frank Montanaro Jr. He is a top legislative staffer who was appointed by House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello. He makes about $156,000 a year. We revealed he placed his old job at Rhode Island College on hold by claiming he was on leave for 3 years, and by doing so, he tapped into a lucrative perk, $50,000 in free tuition for 2 family members. Then on Wednesday, a surprise announcement. Here's what we learned.
Frank Montanaro Jr., a top State House appointee of Speaker Nicholas Mattiello, says he is now going to repay more than $49,000 in tuition to URI and Rhode Island College. In a statement issued by his newly retained spokesperson, Montanaro says a lawyer he hired told him he received the benefit properly, but after consultation with my family and Speaker Mattiello, I believe the best thing to do is return the monetary equivalent of the tuition benefit my children received after I transitioned to my new role at the General Assembly. I will be contacting Rhode Island College tomorrow to make the necessary arrangements. On June 7th, Target 12 first revealed that Montanaro had been on leave from Rhode Island College for 3 years while working for Mattiello and a State House job that pays more than $155,000 a year. But Target 12 discovered that by staying on leave, he was able to hold on to a lucrative benefit, free college tuition. The revelation sparked a public outcry. Then on Tuesday, Target 12 unearthed these documents. Tuition waiver applications signed by Montanaro show he answered no 6 times when asked if he was on leave. A RIC spokesperson says the college had agreements with Montanaro. RIC has refused to provide a copy of those documents.
That night, we should mention the House Speaker issued a statement that said he agreed with Montanaro in paying back Rhode Island College. I'll be honest, Ted, that announcement caught me by surprise that evening when we learned that he was going to pay back all that money. We weren't sure where this was going to go. And we're taping this on a Friday. The governor on WPRO this morning had her strongest words yet on Montanaro.
Yeah, she was a caller, and I think that's something interesting, just to pivot for a second, which is we've both noticed, I think you'd agree, that we've gotten a lot of reaction to this story, more than we maybe even realized we would. I don't know if it's because people pay tuition, it resonated, they understood it. But I actually think the politicians, in some cases, may have been caught by surprise by the level of unhappiness a lot of voters seem to feel, regular voters. Our email boxes have been full. And the governor this morning was actually responding to a caller. It wasn't a profession.
First question.
Yeah, it wasn't a question from any professional interviewer who thought to ask. It was actually a regular person who calls up and says, what would you do about Montanaro? And she, stammered for a bit about, I don't like this, it's a bad situation. If he was mine, I would probably ask him to resign. It's interesting that she waits 2.5 weeks to really speak out on this and does it 12 hours after they approve her free tuition plan. Mm-hmm. It's hard not to see a little bit of softly
don't want to ruffle feathers too much
until you get what you need. Yeah,
right.
But it'll be interesting to see whether whether this story dies down, he is repaying the money, or whether there's still this demand by people for more information about what happened, which we're already seeing some talk of that.
I should note that I spoke to a spokesperson at Rhode Island College on Thursday, and she did confirm that Frank Montanaro has made contact with the college, and they're starting to work out exactly the logistics of paying that back. But we are waiting for more information out there. We were hoping to get a settlement agreement that Mr. Montanaro reached with Rhode Island College, as well as what we assume is a second document, and that is a tuition waiver agreement. We have been denied both of those things. The Rhode Island GOP is also pushing for those and asking the governor to call the state police and take a hard look at this. What do you think the likelihood is that could happen? And we do know the Commissioner of Post-Secondary Education is examining this whole situation. I guess the outstanding question is, are they going to make their findings public?
Yes, I mean, right now there's still a lot of information the public doesn't know about this deal. Who signed it? When did they sign it?
Right.
What talks happened
and they
before
won't even
and after?
tell us
Who called
that.
who? Exactly. And so, at the moment at least, I'm not sure I expect that much information to come out. On the state police question, it's always a sensitive thing for a governor to demand an investigation. I assume that would be more up to the colonel, though. They of course speak since she is technically her subordinate there. I think it remains to be seen to what extent people, as I kind of said before, how much people are satisfied by he's paying back the money. That's a resolution if they didn't like this arrangement, or if people think no. You can't pay back the money and get it to go away. We still want to know exactly what happened, how this came together, etc. Certainly, a lot of lawmakers want it to just go away.
Let's talk about the budget. And before we get into what the main thing people is that you think they need to know, give a little credit to the House Speaker. He was on the show. He said he was going to end the session. He didn't want it to go into the wee hours of the morning. I'm sure the Rhode Island Press Corps was hoping he would hold true to that. And sure enough, the budget was done before 10?
Just before 9, actually.
Wow.
He said he'd go till 10 if he thought it could get done last night in one debate, or he'd stop at 9 and come back Friday.
So what was the difference? You cover this every year.
I think for one thing, the speaker prioritized timeliness, and I think, as you say, we both, I think, kind of smiled and made
rolled
a face,
rolled our eyes
when the speaker said he was adamant about this, because no one says, and the speaker said this, no one says, I want to be voting on bills at 5 a.m. It just happens because this, that, and the other thing falls apart. But I think the speaker, for one thing, one representative said to me last night, he thinks one difference in the Mattiello budgets is that there aren't major dramatic changes introduced on the floor at the last minute unexpectedly. And he said it's you basically debate the budget that's been talked about for a week with some relatively minor changes, which means...
So that means he successfully blocks things from coming on that would cause controversy.
He ensures the House Finance Committee budget, it comes at a point where they've actually ironed out a lot of differences with the governor, with the Senate, making the numbers add up.
Get to it early.
Yeah, but again, also just the fact he started before 3 p.m. Last year, the budget debate didn't start till 4:30. Other years, it started even later because they're still running around frantically behind the scenes trying to pull together the votes, pull together the numbers. So I think I don't see how anyone can not give credit to Speaker Mattiello. The other thing is he does a decent job managing the House. He had basically no rebels in the Democratic caucus. It's 64 Democrats, 11 Republicans. So if he keeps the Democrats generally happy, everyone feels they got something out of the budget. You've taken 64 potential unhappy voices off the table, and you're left with the 11 Republicans. And even the Republicans generally seem to get along fairly well with Speaker Mattiello, though of course they have serious policy disagreements, which they voiced at length over the 5-hour debate. But I think they felt, it seemed they had their chance to make their call. They put in a bunch of amendments. They were all shot down on party line votes, and they had their say.
So for our viewers that did not read your breakdown of what's in the budget, shame on you, what do people need to know about it?
I think if they've been following the public discussion about the budget, there's not any big surprises that I've seen so far in the House-passed budget. Car tax is in there, just as planned, $26 million to start cutting it July 1st. The governor scaled down free tuition plan, 2 years free at CCRI, pilot program, starts this fall, presuming this gets signed into law, which it will. The Amazon tax, taxing e-retail sales, is in there as expected. They did put back a bunch of money for hospitals and nursing homes. They'd been really squealing about how bad they were going to be hit by the cuts the governor put forward to balance the budget. One thing to watch for, they also have kind of a magic asterisk in this budget, which is the governor needs to just find $25 million in savings somewhere over the course of the year. As much as a $9 billion budget, it sounds like it should be easy. Almost every dollar in the budget has someone behind it who likes that dollar of spending, so that won't be easy.
All right, 1 minute left in the program. You brought up 11 Republicans, the old joke, they could caucus in a phone booth. I don't know if you know what that is. But do they have influence over the budget?
I think so, and I think it's easy to miss that because you see the votes on their amendments all going down 60-something to 11 or whatnot, maybe 50 to 20 on a good one for them. But what the Republicans do is they get in the heads of the Democratic majority. So an idea the Republicans put forward aggressively that seems to get some traction, if you watch, before long, some of them become law. Just the Democrats grab it and put their names on and take credit. Social Security tax cut was a Republican plan that the Democrats embraced. Cutting the car tax was something the Democrats were pushing last year. The Commerce Corporation criticism the Republicans have been doing at least is getting a hearing from the Speaker and some other legislators. So I do think the Republicans know how to influence the debate.
All right, our thanks to our first half guest, the President and CEO of the Rhode Island Airport Corporation. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.